That was horrible.
Derek, how do you do a cold open? This is the most stressful part of starting a podcast.
It really is. And I think that we turned to the experts at coldopen.com who told me that I just do it.
Do you just do it? Let's just throw
you just start talking. You just start having conversations.
It's like jazz. It's just free form. You get in there, and then you talk about a spooky movie with your good friend.
Yeah, and then you go to WikiHow, and you look up how to summon Slenderman, and it tells you to...
No, that was the last one, I think.
Yeah, no, it was, but like... Hi, I'm Derek.
I am Isaac.
We're the That Was Horrorble podcast.
Hosts.
The hosts.
That's us.
We embody it.
Hosts with the most, right? Is that two on the nose?
No, I think that was right on the nose, honestly. Like, I think it could have been a little higher on the brim of my nose.
You're right, yeah, maybe for next time. Welcome back. We are here with another deemed horrible movie in the eyes of critics and just the general population think that Return of the Living Dead 2 was not really the best movie you could be spending your time to watch. Is that right, Derek?
That is right. So on Rotten Tomatoes, Return of the Living Dead Part 2 is sitting at a 5% on the tomato meter.
Ooh.
But here's where it changes. The audience score is actually at 44%.
Which is not like incredibly high if you want to consider something a good horror movie, but certainly not as low as what was it, 5%?
Yeah, 5%. And I mean, that's only out of 21 reviews, and the movie did come out in 1988.
Everybody's a critic.
Everybody's a critic.
You know, just when you thought it was safe to be dead, they released Return of the Living Dead 2.
Part 2.
And... mind you, neither of us had seen Return of the Living Dead 1. We had never watched that one, so we actually decided to make this a bit of a double feature kind of thing. So we had went back and watched Return of the Living Dead, which kicks ass.
It was great.
It was a good time.
I had such a good time with
I
that
had
movie.
a wonderful time watching that movie. I mean, I know it's revered pretty well. Like, I know the Rotten Tomatoes score on that one is much, much higher.
Oh, yeah.
So it made it much more interesting for us to come back to Return of the Living Dead Part 2 and say, okay, what about this makes this suck in comparison to the first one? Because now we have direct things we can compare to. And there were a lot of like connecting things between the two.
Absolutely, there was.
In very good ways and very bad ways as well.
Yeah. So those of you who aren't familiar, Return of the Living Dead is kind of a spiritual successor / actual successor to
Night of the Living
Night
Dead.
of the Living
George
Dead.
Romero's Night of the Living Dead. Like classic, original zombie flick, you know, that really kind of started the genre.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you haven't seen Return of the Living Dead, I actually highly recommend the first one.
Yeah, I'd watch it again.
If you're a fan of campy zombie movies.
And that's the thing, we have to go into it, right, expecting a lot of campy horror, right? We can't like, you know, shake a finger at it for being that, because it's great, and I love it for being that.
It was great. And to just like finish off a little segment about the first one, it was great in the fact that it had like kind of unsuspecting scary zombies.
Yes. The zombies really came at you. Like, after seeing George Romero's Night of the Living Dead, you think we know exactly like what zombies are like. You know, they're very slow moving, they're pretty weak, they don't have a lot of strength to them, you know. They have their strength in numbers, I think, but they're not incredibly threatening on their own.
Right.
And maybe a bit more in a horde. But these ones in Return of the Living Dead, they were actually scary. There were some moments where I was very shocked by them. They just have incredible speed, which really takes it up a notch. You know, I didn't realize how scary that could be when a zombie can run full sprint, same speed as you, and tackle you to the ground. You know, they're just relentless.
Yeah, and we were looking into it because that's what we do. Dan O'Brien, the guy who wrote and directed the Return of the Living Dead 1, he actually co-wrote and co-directed Alien. Yeah. And Aliens as well with Ridley Scott. So it kind of made sense.
It shows.
It really shows. You got these cool monsters. You've got good characters that you kind of care about, even if they're stupid. So that's enough, I think, about Return of the Living Dead.
Yeah.
Definitely go watch that movie if you haven't.
But unfortunately, this isn't a podcast about that one. Go watch your favorite horror podcast about the good ones. That's not our Steve.
We don't talk about good movies.
We're here to talk about bottom of the barrel, 5% on Rotten Tomatoes films like Return of the Living Dead 2.
So Return of the Living Dead Part 2 came out in 1988, 5 years after the original, or 3 years after the original. It was directed and written by Ken Widerhorn. I tried looking into him. He's done basically nothing of note. Everything he's done sits about a 5% or a 5 on IMDb. He did make a Stephen King's Dark Tower movie that I didn't even adaptation that I didn't even know existed. Wow, apparently it was bad. It was really, really bad.
Yeah, I hear bad things about that, I think.
I love Dark Tower, so I don't really want to ruin it for myself. So it had an estimated $6.2 million budget. It only grossed $9.2 million worldwide.
So, I mean, made a profit.
They made $3 million, right?
Yeah.
Which is more than it deserved.
More money than I'll ever have, that's for sure.
So, okay, let's go into expectations here. So this was a little different where we watched 2 movies back to back.
Yeah.
Honestly, I expected it to be way worse than the original. I expected bad acting. I expected stupid plots. Yep. I expected way more nudity.
Because the first one was pretty gratuitous with the nudity just kind of always kind of in your face, whether it was an actual person or like posters up on the wall. You know, there were boobs in most shots.
Most shots, there were at least one pair of boobs.
Yeah.
Or a screaming woman on the wall.
Yeah, we got like a pair of boobs every 6 minutes ratio.
Yeah, really though. And I expected more from the sequel. We'll get into that later. And I expected to enjoy it more than critics. Yep. Because of how much I enjoyed the original. I was sure that, 30 years down the line, something had changed.
Yeah.
40 years now?
Yeah. A while. It's been some time.
Time is a construct. What was your expectations?
So my expectations, I was feeling like it would not live up to what the original was, which is kind of hard to, especially when I know what the Rotten Tomatoes score was for it compared to the original. Kind of hard to live up to something that I really enjoyed, but I did expect to like it more than the critics were saying. I was expecting to come out of this not really understanding exactly why the critics felt the way they did and why it was so poorly rated. I didn't think they would have effects that would live up to something like the fantastic Tar Man in the first one, because that was awesome. God, what an amazing, wonderful zombie design. So unique and great. So cool. I thought the plot wasn't going to be that great as well. I thought it was going to have good music that would really up it. I'm not sure what led me to that belief. I'm just I looked at the movie and kind of saw what it was kind of giving me. I'm like, it's going to have good music in it. Which actually there's some trivia that leads into that I'll get into later. But so remind me about the music there. And I actually was the opposite of Derek. I thought there were going to be much less boobs in this movie.
Yeah, we were divided on that.
Yeah,
it was a long argument.
Yeah, we were kind of fighting. We heated, but we made up now. We're friends again.
Yeah, we're no longer rowing.
Boobs cannot divide us.
So to give a brief synopsis of the first movie, and then going into the synopsis of this movie. So the first movie, basically, the army has encased zombies and this gas that they compare to marijuana inside these giant barrels.
Yeah, they use it to spray on marijuana or something like that.
Something
that's where it comes through. And they didn't even give it a cool name either. It's chemical X3 blah blah something.
Right.
It's just got some just a name for it.
Very generic. There's these 2 bumbling guys inside this medical supply store, and one of them's like, hey, in the basement we have these cool barrels. And
he basically told the dude about the story about how there was a movie, Night of the Living Dead. They referred to this movie. He's like, no, it really happened, and we've got the bodies down in the basement for some reason.
It was so stupid. I love these 2 characters, and the reason I'm bringing them up so much is, well, you'll see in a second. But I really liked their bumbling, stupid nature. It was funny without being forcibly funny.
Yes.
Anyway, so they go down to the basement. They look at the barrel. They hit the side of the barrel with just a love tap. Just the slightest, not even enough to get a candy bar stuck in a vending machine. And he just barely taps this barrel and it cracks open and this gas goes everywhere and emerges this the Tar Man. He is so cool. Anyway, releases the gas into the air. They end up burning a corpse that releases the gas. Oh, spoilers, I guess.
Spoilers.
I'm going to just go for
it.
We'll probably just, this episode, I feel like, the whole thing's just gonna have spoilers. There's no way to go about talking about this movie without just spoiling it.
A bit, yeah.
So just keep that in mind. Anyway, so the gas goes in the air. It starts to rain. It goes all over a cemetery.
It happens to infect a cemetery that is directly next to this medical center, which is very convenient for the plot of this movie.
So silly. And the cemetery is called Resurrection Cemetery, which is the greatest name for a cemetery.
Love it, honestly. Absolutely.
I want to be buried.
Love it.
Resurrection Cemetery.
I'm going to make a request. I'm going to be buried in Resurrection Cemetery.
Anyway, lots of things happen. After that, that's basically all you need to know. At the end of the movie, they end up bombing the town and killing...
no hesitation whatsoever. As soon as word finally reaches the army, because it takes some time.
Yeah,
as soon as word finally reaches them, they're like, oh, okay, cool, yeah. Boom. Gone. All just no problem. They're like, yeah, only 4,000 casualties. We did a good job.
We did a great job.
It's so strange. But then it starts to rain again, the same chemical rain that made it happen the first time, and it kind of leaves us on that cliffhanger.
Absolutely. And I love that ending. Personally, it's so campy and dorky.
It was so cheesy.
And the whole movie, you really feel like there's no way to kill these zombies.
Yeah.
So we talked about that. We're like, how are they going to win? Like,
honestly,
how's this movie going to end?
Because the thing about them is, like, it kind of flips the whole, like, what we knew about zombies beforehand on its head. And so, the typical, like, what we know about killing zombies is, like, shoot it in the head. Take it something about the brain, right? Take that out and a zombie is dead, right? Not the case in this movie. Not the case for the Return of the Living Dead zombies. They are unstoppable.
They are
at this point. Really, the only things we knew that would kill them is, like, burning them to ashes or blowing them up.
Yep. And
because they've been chopped up to bits, they've been shot, stabbed in the head, heads cut off.
Oh yeah,
chopped into a bunch of bits, still moving around. They're tough. They're tough cookies.
Really, really tough. So yeah, they just blow up the town.
Easy peasy.
Poor Louisville, Kentucky is what
right.
rest in
peace.
The movie did start by saying it was a true story, so.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. All these things really happened. All the names are real and these locations are real.
When that came up on the screen, I knew I was in for a good time.
Really though.
Which is where part 2 went wrong.
Yeah.
So let's get into the synopsis of that one. Basically, it starts, you see a guy driving a truck. Mm-hmm. He's got those same barrels in the back, but now they're more high-tech.
Yeah, they've got like a security code on them instead of just like a latch on the top of it, right?
Which is very good and definitely played a important plot point in the movie.
Really, though. But yeah, they're just like loosely thrown in the back of this army van.
Oh, yeah.
Not even strapped down. There's nobody in the back of the van with them. They're just back there. And this is like, that has the T-virus bad zombie outbreak thing in it. And they're like, yeah, they're fine back there while we're swerving around these turns.
Really, though. So a barrel falls out.
Yep.
Falls into a cemetery, because why wouldn't it?
Of course.
Honestly. Mm-hmm. These kids, these annoying kids, just like the worst kids, they find it. One kid's like, oh, cool, look at that. And then we see a glimpse of what is like almost as cool as the monster from the first movie.
Oh, yes. But we had like a Tarman 2, which was
almost there.
Yeah, it did not quite live up to the first one, but I really enjoyed it still, because I think, they were aware that people loved that design, right? So like, let's give them something kind of like that, though.
Let's tease them a little bit.
It was a Tarman, but just not exactly what we had in the first one. I still loved it, though. I still very much enjoyed it.
Yeah, I liked him, too. His face left a lot to be desired for me, because I think part of what scared me about the first Tarman so much.
He was so expressive.
He was so expressive. His eyes were big, and he like had this big grin, which wasn't actually a grin. He just was only a jaw, right?
Exactly. And he had more lighting in the first one too, because they find him in the basement of the medical building, right? So like you can see a lot more of him. This one's in like a big sewer drain, so like he's kind of hidden in the darkness, kind of blends in with it a little bit. Yeah, they show his face for a lot longer too than the first one. But yeah, I liked the physicality of the first one more, just like how much more he moved around, and his scene was a lot shorter in the sequel.
It was, disappointingly so. I mean, this kid just like kind of pushes him into a lake or into a river, and then you never see him again.
No, exactly. Like, it's kind of sad. But the way they get into this barrel is, we mentioned how the barrels are more high tech now, right?
Yeah.
So they bust there's like a glass shield protecting like the code lock on it, right? And they break that. And it starts to beep like a bomb. And then it just emits all of the gas. Yeah. What was that? Like, why is this a feature on this barrel? I think that is like a reoccurring thing throughout the entirety of this movie, is like, why? Why is that a thing? Why is any of this, right? Because
no sense.
That was just the start of all of it, right? I'm like, why is that a feature on this? You'd imagine there's a code on it for a reason. Like, we're going to keep the public away from things like this, right? It's not so like, well, if you goof up, we're gonna get you all gassed up with the whatever they call it.
Really though, because there was like that pipe, and it just was like shooting the chemicals. It wasn't even like,
it was like a feature like intentionally made. Like, you mess up, and we are going to shoot a lot of this too.
Yeah,
not even a little bit of the gas, enough to like fill the cemetery next to it almost completely. And there's two guys in it who are like, oh, what's this? Oh, it's swamp gas. Don't worry about that.
So those two guys, though, are the same actors as the two guys from the first film.
Yeah, the same bumbling guys who get the whole movie started the first time.
It is. We both of us looked at each other like, wait, those are the same guys.
Yeah,
what are they
at
doing?
first I only recognized one of them. I recognized the actor playing Ed, and you recognized the other actor, right? Who was playing like John or something. Because he was
Freddie in the first movie.
Freddie in the first one, yeah. And I didn't recognize him because he had like more hair this time. It was beautiful.
Oh yeah, he'd grown up.
Same deal. It's the same. They took so much from the plot of the first movie anyway.
Oh, yeah.
It's the same situation where, like, the character who's playing the younger of the two, he is joining the older guy who is very seasoned in whatever this work environment is, right? Yeah. He's a little skeptical of it. He doesn't know if he loves it. He's like, oh, come on, I'll show you the ropes. I'll show you a little bit of fun here, you know? And this time they're grave robbers.
Yeah, which took us so long to figure out.
Yeah.
He was like, oh, we're here in my flower garden. I'm like, you're walking through a cemetery. What are you doing?
His girlfriend dropped him off at this job, right? I thought he was like, you know, a grave cleaner. I don't know. Something that was an actual job, not, hey, there's this dude I met on like Craigslist who's going to help me rob jewels and stuff from these corpses.
Oh my gosh. And then he's taking their heads. It's not even that he's just like collecting jewelry. He's like, nah, dude, look at this fresh head.
Exactly.
Puts
Chops
it in a bag.
off real easy. Yeah, keeps it around with him. And the dude almost backs out, too. He's like, this is too much for me. He's like, how about this silver bracelet?
Yeah, he's like, I saw your girlfriend. Wouldn't she want this bracelet?
And human greed is the real monster, I think is what we can say here.
Well, let's just end it here. I think we solved the riddle.
That's it, honestly. That's all there is. But yeah, so they're back. They're back again, and there are several times throughout the movie where they kind of make slight nods, maybe not so slight other times, slight nods to the fact that they are the same actors as the first movie.
Oh yeah, that's
like
right.
There's actually a portion right before things kind of break bad and the zombies start actually bothering them. They're kind of like eating their lunches in the middle of this like mausoleum place, and he's talking about how like, oh, I'm not going to be buried, I'm going to be cremated, and that's how he died in the first movie. Yeah, that's how
he died in the first movie. Greatest death ever, and he did not get a redemption like that in this one.
Honestly, though, yeah, what an honorable way to die. He's infected. He's like basically turning into a zombie in the first one, which is kind of neat because there's the virus that brings zombies back from the dead, and then if you inhale enough of it, you become a zombie. So you are undead.
Exactly.
And that's kind of a plot line that's in the first one as well as the second one that becomes relevant. But I really did enjoy how that was utilized in there, I guess.
Yeah, it was one of many plot lines that we'll get into that I feel like they just forgot.
Yeah.
Like rules? The world just doesn't have rules.
No, it's a lawless wasteland, this one.
And I guess that not everything has to have rules. But when you're summoning the same zombies from the ground, you would expect there to be some similarities.
Yeah, exactly.
And I feel like with this one, the gas is out. It starts raining again. Because if you're in a graveyard at night, it's going to start raining. Mm-hmm. That's just a rule. Anyway, zombies start coming out of the ground in a much cooler fashion.
I love this sequence. I gotta say, that is one thing that really excited me about this movie, was I was expecting the effects to not live up to its predecessor, and it actually did so, and more in some cases. Just like that sequence that we're talking about, right? Like the sequence of all the zombies breaking out. In the original one, it had some great music behind it, but all the shots were very fast. You didn't get a lot of time dedicated to them.
It was mostly of the gravestones.
Yeah, exactly. Honestly. A lot of them like shaking and some hands coming up out of the ground. But in this one, great music accompanied it as well. It was actually one of my favorite scenes that had the music in it. Mm-hmm. And they are like very long sequences. You see them completely pull themselves up out of the ground. You get really good shots of the prosthetics that were on them. And I think this is definitely the point where I realized, this is going to be a horror comedy.
Yep,
because there's a funny moment where a lady comes up out of the grave and kind of squints and has to put on her glasses before she can continue pulling herself out of this grave.
Which at that point, I still thought we were watching it. I did not realize these were considered horror comedies.
Oh, yeah, me
like, I watched the first one, like, yeah, I'm laughing, but it's because it's, like, 40 years old, right?
Right,
I was like, this is hilarious.
I guess there's a line there. It's like, I'm laughing during this horror movie, but that doesn't make it a horror comedy, right?
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And it was at that moment I actually went and looked, and I was like, oh, yep, Isaac, we're watching a comedy. Which is fine. I don't have any issue with that. I love horror comedies. Yeah. I just didn't know.
Yeah,
exactly. I couldn't tell.
But it was definitely that point that really turned for us. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, I see what we are into now. Yeah. You know?
Because they also had a moment where one came out of the ground and he was spitting dirt out of his mouth, which I thought was a nice take. Neat. And then one walks and falls into the grave of another one who just climbed out.
Kind of klutzy this time around.
Oh yeah,
but the effects all around, like the prosthetics, it really feels like they put most of the money into those, right?
Absolutely.
Like one of the first like zombie like squoosh scenes that we get to see is actually when a zombie sneaks up on one of the main girls and she just punches it square in the face.
That's right.
And it's like one of those old like 90s they had like these horror toys that like almost all of them involved some kind of slime that would ooze out of something.
About.
So it felt like that. She squished its face and then just like so much green slime pours out of its face.
It's like the one you squeeze.
Yes,
and
exactly.
it like
all that kind of stuff. There was like there was a whole market for that kind of like those toys for kids at that time. But it looked like that and I loved it. I loved that so too. Good.
I really enjoyed that. So if you can't tell, like, the beginning of this movie was actually pretty good.
At this point, I made a comment to you. Yes. I was like, so far, I'm not seeing why this deserved like a 5%. I'm having a good time.
Yeah, it was good. But then I realized it was the beginning of the movie. Yeah. Right? And the zombies were already here. Yeah. And I actually made a note. I was like, what? Where is it going to go? Mm-hmm. Where's it going to go from here? Like, there's already zombies. Like, we're 10 minutes in.
Which is kind of tough, right? When you make any zombie movie, it's like, how can what can we do with these guys? They're here now. Yeah. Where can we take them? That is not what we did the last time, right?
Exactly.
You know? And this movie definitely felt a bit more, like, family friendly a bit. Like 100%. The PG-13 rating 100%. really reigned through the entire time of it.
But it was R. It was hard R.
Yeah, which is crazy, right?
Well, not hard R, but it was an R movie.
It apparently would have got a PG-13 rating had a later kill, which we'll get to later, had it been just lessened entirely.
Oh, interesting.
There was a specific kill that they're like, this was a bit much, and that's why it got the R rating.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go for it.
Was it the screwdriver in the mouth of the kid?
It was not.
What?
But it should have been.
It should have been.
Who knows? Maybe the one I know of is like one of many. That probably made it a bit much. One thing that really was incredibly noticeable as soon as the zombies came out of the ground, they were so much slower.
Oh my gosh.
They were so much less of a threat in this movie.
What was the purpose?
I don't know, especially
they were
since
so bad.
Like we commented about like how the first one really shocked us with like just the mobility and like the just the threat of the first zombies.
Absolutely.
And then the sequel, they moved more like the traditional zombies we know, right?
Yeah.
It's like, they move very slowly, they just like
arms out, limping forward.
They were not that scary. You could easily outrun almost all of the zombies in this movie, right?
Absolutely.
And the only reason I can justify that is I feel like they kind of dug themselves a hole with the first one, because like you said, we were like, what are they going to do? How can they get out of this, right?
Sure.
There were very few places they could run and hide from these things because they could get almost anywhere
Absolutely.
at the same speed as you. They were chasing after cars, climbing buildings and stuff. So I think in order to, especially since this one was set in like a suburban town kind of setting, we could not make them quite as powerful. Otherwise, everyone would be dead.
Everyone
they would have died very fast.
It also seemed like it was just like a really small cemetery or something, because there were only like 50 zombies.
Yeah, there were not that many.
Which
the numbers
definitely
were greatly reduced.
Wasn't reality. I felt like they wanted us to believe there were hundreds and hundreds, but it felt like there was just like a little handful.
Yeah.
Which is fine. Like, you could make that work. Just like make me believe it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? It kind of it went in a very different direction with the zombies, which was very interesting.
Because I hate to keep jumping back and forth between the movies, but one of the things I loved about the first movie was these zombies could talk.
Yeah,
and they were like at one point a zombie kills 2 cops or 2 paramedics, and then jumps on the radio and asks them to send more.
But it was so cool because first of all, we'd not expected that. We heard them say brains, and up to that point, that was kind of all we understood they could do.
Yeah,
and then he pulls up and it kind of seems like he had to relearn how to use his vocal cords. Send more paramedics. It sounded kind of forced, right? It was really neat to see that.
It was great.
And in this one, they did not talk at first. It took them a while to
It did take them a while.
And then the first instance that one of them talked was really where the movie started to go downhill.
I have it written down right here. I have it written down right here.
Yeah, what's that one?
So someone stabs this stupid skull. It's actually, it's the head that they stole from the grave. In the grave. And he puts it in his bag, his stupid little bag.
Because at this point, they've all run from it. All of the characters that are going to be our main, protagonists of this movie have kind of gathered in one house.
Yeah.
And this is at the point where, they're not sure about what's happening. They don't quite understand this. Yep. And then, the bag in his hand starts to shake.
It's shaking up.
And he's like, oh, yeah, cool. It's in a container that is safe for me to hold right now. I'm going to pull it out now.
I'm going to open it and look at it.
Not only that, he takes it out and, puts his finger near its mouth. where it almost gets bit.
Doesn't he actually like get a little chewed on?
I think he gets chewed on a little bit,
so
right?
Stupid.
Which causes him to drop it, and then this happens.
And then they stab it with the screwdriver, and the zombie just chimes in, "Get that damn screwdriver out of my head."
Yeah.
Just like that.
So shocking. Not very, scary at all. She had this, southern accent.
It was so dumb.
I was really hoping it wouldn't talk. I'm like, well, it's a severed head. There are no vocal cords in that, right?
That doesn't matter.
She can't talk.
That doesn't matter.
Yeah, no, she's got some of the best, worst lines in the movie, and we'll come back around to that later.
She just keeps appearing.
So can we talk about, our protagonists of the film?
Yes, let's talk about
Let's talk about
what
the
is there
kid.
to say?
The
blonde boy.
The blonde boy who's there from the beginning is an old man trapped in a child's body.
Absolutely.
From the beginning, I'm like, I don't necessarily have a problem with the dialogue that was written for him, but it was not written for a little kid.
It was not.
He does not talk like kids do. Yeah. Even when he was interacting, because there are these two bully characters. Now it's the main blonde boy and the two bully characters are the ones who come across the barrel in the first place. And him interacting with them just doesn't seem right. It just doesn't feel
wrong.
right. The other kids sound and act like kids do, but he's an old man in a kid body.
He really
That's kind
is.
of the best way I can describe him. He's very smart.
He's got some MacGyver energy.
Really,
right?
though. He's very witty and comes up with good solutions to things sometimes.
And he went back to the barrel. He read this weird comic book that never came back.
Yeah.
That was radioactive man pouring stuff out of a container or whatever. And it was very on the nose fake comic book, right?
Yeah.
And then he masks up, puts on this protective gear.
He was prepared.
He was very
prepared. A little surgical mask, had goggles on, did not have gloves, which is where he went astray.
But they at least gave him that much to show why he never got infected.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he was smart about it. Yeah. He knew. And at that point, he had understood that one of the kids, the two bully kids, had gone back and did get infected. Yeah. He's like, oh, you're sick. You went back to that barrel, didn't you? Because he knew. Because he didn't want them to mess with it in the first place.
The funny thing is, though, I thought both bully kids got infected. But then one of the bully kids disappears.
He's gone for the rest of the movie.
You never see him.
There were two of them. Both of them got infected at the same time, and they dedicated the rest of the movie to continuously bringing this one bully kid back.
Never saw the other one again. Nope. He drove off in a car.
Who knows?
He's gone.
He could be dead. He could be just fine. I don't know. I will never know what happened to this kid.
I mean, I have a theory. Mm-hmm. I think they forgot about him. And then they were like, oh, well, everyone in the town evacuated, which they also didn't talk about.
No.
And then they just were like, he moved on with his family. Which, if that's the case, does that mean he's spreading the virus elsewhere?
Oh, I guess we'll have to see part 3 of what, 5?
5 parts, yeah.
There are 5 of these things.
5 of these movies.
That, I mean, apparently they're just getting progressively worse throughout the thing, so it's like...
I don't know.
We'll see. Maybe we'll come back to those at some point someday down the line.
Not yet.
Yeah, so we've got that kid. He's got a sister who doesn't really do much for the plot, honestly. She's there.
She's just there.
You've got the two from the original, and the younger of the two's got a girlfriend who...
Oh, yeah. How do you feel about her?
She's just the most annoying character in this movie. I could not ever call her a scream queen.
Terrible.
She was just the worst throughout the entirety of this
movie.
movie.
Did she try to be a scream queen, though.
She really has. Every line she had was screamed and just...
I can't even get up when she starts yelling at him. I don't even remember what she was yelling about because I was laughing too hard at her delivery.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
It was seriously look at me, Daddy, I'm acting energy. You know what I mean?
It was not great, which is unfortunate because I recognized her, and Derek had looked it up. She had been in Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Yep,
was another one, and then what was the other one she was in?
I don't remember.
It was another horror something that I remember enjoying, and I don't remember hating her in that movie.
Absolutely.
But in this one, I was like, get her off screen as soon as we can.
Really,
she was always an issue for me,
and she's one of those characters that you just wanted to get rid of and then wouldn't go away, which is part of the problem.
They kept utilizing her. I'm like, I wish she had got the bully treatment right, where she was just gone from the movie at a certain point.
Seriously.
But yeah, I could not. I was sick of her. But then we had a great character played by Dana Ashbrook, who's of Twin Peaks fame.
Yeah, he's Bobby. What's his face?
Bobby in Twin Peaks, and he's great. I loved him.
I really did.
He was the only I don't know if I can say the only, but one of the only actors in the movie who was appropriately responding to the situations going on in the movie. Because everybody else was either... It did not seem like they were not grasping the situation that they were in. Mm-hmm. They were too much I'm the hero and I'm going to do this thing now. I don't care that there's zombies chasing me. They didn't seem to care much. Because it seems like they were too aware of the fact that they were in a movie and things were going to be all right for them.
Yeah.
And then there were the other actors who were just completely overdoing it, way overacting, too cheesy. And somehow he was here in the middle of it all and like just very accurately and like appropriately responding to the situations as they came up. So I loved him for that.
He was like coming up with good ideas too. Like he comes up with a big idea at the end of the movie to try and get rid of him.
Exactly, right, because the army does not help them whatsoever. That comes up lots of times throughout it.
Can we talk about taking a step sideways? So there's a part where the zombies break into the house where they're all at, right? Mm-hmm. And it establishes, which I didn't think was a Chekhov moment, but it was a Chekhov's moment. At the beginning of the movie, the sister is doing some jazzercise aerobics Buns of Steel stuff. And that's a Chekhov's Buns of Steel right there.
Chekhov's Buns of Steel.
Because now all the zombies are breaking in. She's still watching Buns of Steel because that's her whole personality.
No, it's not on yet. Because what happens is they break into the house and they're trying to run away, and then I think his name was Tom, Dana Ashbrook's character.
Oh, yeah.
He gets caught by one of them. They're like, no, I love him. Don't get him killed. They're wrestling on the floor, and he rolls over the remote, which turns on the jazzercise.
Right. I remember now.
And I really thought he was done in at this point. I thought we had seen the last of him. And I was very sad about it.
But did you know that the zombies in this movie are horny?
Did you know zombies get horny?
All of them.
That does not die when you
no.
pass away,
You're
I suppose.
very horny.
The horniness lives on.
Whether you're horny for brains or horny for those Buns of Steel,
because
you are horny.
Every zombie that was in the room, breaking through the house, looking for brains, stops what they are doing to watch this. And that is how he is able to escape and get out.
It's incredible, honestly. I'm going to have Buns on Steel on speed dial.
Yeah, honestly. Now I know that's something I will walk away from this movie with. You know, if I'm ever in a pinch getting chased by zombies, I can turn something on that'll appeal to the horniness of a zombie and I'll be okay.
But not too much. We want to keep it PG-13.
It was very tasteful. Because up to this point, and as I had suspected, not a single boob. Not even tasteful side boob, no cleavage. Nothing. And at this one, I was very accepting of the fact that I'm like, it's a pretty kid-centric story feeling kind of PG-13, even though that's not the rating it got. I was like, we're not going to see a single boob in this movie. It
kind of felt like they were going for a Goonies vibe.
Yeah,
right?
A little bit.
Like they wanted
like
that
Goonies or maybe even like E.T. a little bit. Yeah. Kind of like kids will enjoy it, but also parents could enjoy it as well.
Yeah,
absolutely. No parents whatsoever.
Well, no, they're the one parents because the dad died.
Of the other kids, yeah.
Oh, yeah, of the other kids. Yeah, not of the main kids.
The main blonde boy does not have parents that we ever see anything about.
Really, though? Oh, my goodness. Okay, so they're all getting ready to leave. The kid pulls a gun out of a gun cabinet. This 10-year-old, 8-year-old boy. I don't even know how old he was.
So confidently carrying this gun.
And he shoves it right into his pants. He's gonna shoot his dick right off.
Kid, you'll shoot your dick off.
You'll shoot your dick out, kid.
And it is from here on throughout the movie, it is when I started thinking, did they have some kind of shitty one-liner quota?
Oh my
Because it was him and another character we haven't met yet, and I think a third one that no matter what the stakes of the scene were, there was always time to steal, and they might as well have looked straight at the camera and said 100%. This shitty, annoying, obnoxious one line, just and the kid had a lot of those ones, and those came up throughout. I'm like, why do they keep doing this? Please stop this.
It was shocking, honestly. One-liners I'm usually a fan of. But let's talk about that other character.
This many. Oh, man. We meet essentially the mascot man, the old man from the Six Flags commercials, in the form of a doctor who lives 2 houses down from them, apparently.
Favorite character.
Remember how I mentioned none of these characters are treating this situation appropriately? This man, to the extreme degree, is so casual and nonchalant. He's whipping out one-liners throughout the whole thing, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a bit where they come to him and they're trying to explain to him that there are zombies out on the loose and he needs to help them. One of the characters grabs him by the collar and is shaking him around, and he is unstirred by this. He literally goes, "Oh, must be important, or must be." What does he say? Something.
I think
so
it's literally
stupid.
Just that. It's must be important then.
Yeah, must be a real danger then. Just the entire time, everything he says, I'm like, do you understand? Even obviously in the sequence when they're going into his car to try to drive away, there are zombies breaking in through every single entrance. He's like, oh no, nobody drives
get him
chariots.
Off the roof.
Yeah, well, tell him to get off there.
Tell him to get off the roof.
Oh, surely we're not going to drive through the driveway door. No way. I never got a scratch on this car. He doesn't care. He does not. And maybe that's a character, that's just part of him, right? He doesn't care. He's old. He's lived a life, I guess.
I don't know.
But he's oh gosh, from his Inception on, just like the movie was on a downward slope for me personally. I was really losing it.
No, it definitely hit a point where it would not stop.
And it was relentless. Honestly, from the point where he was introduced on, everybody really suddenly like they kind of got. It feels like at that point, once he was introduced, everyone was like, "Okay, well, this guy's doing it. I gotta start hamming it up too.
Yeah, we gotta bring it up."
Things just kept getting hammed up over and over. It was honestly like
a different writer stepped in, which it didn't happen, but it's what it felt like.
But we did keep seeing some very great prosthetics and use of the practical effects on these creatures. There was this really cool one I enjoyed of this lady who was like laying down on the ground, and then she like lifts up her face, and she's got this like decomposing face with these worms sticking out.
Oh yeah, they loved her. They used her a lot.
Which, of course, if you got such a cool looking prosthetic, you gotta bring that back a couple times, right?
We can't fail to mention the hand, though.
You mean the hand that they played hot potato with as they were driving away from the scene of the danger?
One of the zombies like shoves his hand into the window while they're driving.
And they cut it off with the window as they roll it up, which is a pretty neat effect.
I liked it. I really did. And then the hand falls in and they start fighting with it. It grabs his penis.
Yeah.
For some
it grabs the Six Flags man's penis. Though, like, because they're all screaming and passing it to each other when they could just easily throw it out of the window or the other window. They don't need to be doing this. And then, it makes its way to the front seat where Six Flags Man is sitting, and then like there was no sound effect, but like the way it was shot and done, it made it look like it was like honk on his whole crotch zone. And again, he was not very taken aback by this.
He was fine.
Like, that was it, you know?
Oh, lady.
Like, yeah, hey, man, there's a hand that has been severed from its body that is still moving around.
Oh, my goodness.
Doesn't matter, I guess. And then, when they finally get it out of the car, it lands on the ground, and they drive away. And then what happens?
It just, like, curls into a middle finger right up, flipping off the car as it drives away.
What is that? It's like Terminator 2. With a thumbs up. You were thinking the same thing, right?
And I feel like that was a reference, right? It had to have been at that point.
Yeah, so they finally make it away from, like, the developing town that the movie even starts in, which never really comes back around. I didn't really understand that. But they try to make their way to a hospital, and it's like, are the two characters that were in the original, are they still sick? Because they kind of mentioned it at the beginning. Like, there have been some mentions like, oh, I don't feel so good, because that's what happened to them in the first one, right? They inhaled some of the fumes from the barrel, and then that's what ended up making them turn undead and turn zombie-like. Right. And this one, it was like a slow burn for them to actually get there. Because I kind of actually questioned it at certain points. I'm like, is that still a threat to them? Because so much other stuff is happening.
Well, and also, when they get like sick is in the morgue, and I feel like, I don't know, I felt like that other girl was there, and maybe she would have gotten sick too. Yeah. And there was no continuity to it. But now they're sick. They're sick now.
Yeah, as well as one of the bully kids, right? Yep. He was also sick, and that had been established. His mom was understanding, like his temperature was below normal, and it was just...
The worst scene in the movie for me is when the kid realizes he's a zombie. And he's like, for some reason, whenever you transition into a zombie from being alive, you like have this moment of like, oh, I get it now. I want to eat brains.
Really, though? It's kind of funny, right? It's like, it just clicks for them like, yes. Oh, wait. This is what I want.
I have seen the light, and the brains are what they are. So, like, he gives his mom a hug. He's like, I'm sorry, Mom, or whatever. And then he turns, and it's the worst sound, the worst look. It gave me the worst chills.
Too.
And it was so unnecessary. It made me mad. Like, I don't know. He just bit into her skull, you know, because all skulls are super soft in accordance to this movie.
It just was uncomfortable, honestly. Didn't appreciate it.
I hated it.
But yeah, so they make it to the hospital, and it is at this point that we see an empty town, completely desert of people. And I feel like this is where I started to feel like this movie was not holding my hand very well as an audience member, right? I felt like I was out of the loop on certain things.
Oh, yeah.
Where it's like, I don't understand if I'm to believe that, like, the zombie outbreak has reached the town and they're all infected, or if it's been evacuated. Like, who did that? Because like we didn't understand that. Nobody had mentioned any of these things. Exactly. But they come into the hospital, absolutely nobody there.
No, it was just empty.
And then we get a similar scene that was in the first movie where we start to understand, these two who inhaled the fumes, they are now turning into dead people, right?
Right.
And the girlfriend is annoying, trying to be like, no, it's not happening.
And he's like, oh, come on, let me eat your brains, baby.
She's like, Ed, quit it.
Ed, stop, I'm not into dead guys.
Oh gosh.
She literally said that. It made me so happy. And then, she dies.
Yeah, it's just so cheesy at this point. I'm like, I like a good amount of cheese, but I feel like this one was too cheesy.
And it's so cheesy to the point where they drive past a pet store.
Yeah.
and the pet store's being ransacked by everyone. And like all the zombies. And what did they do? What'd they do, Isaac?
They just ransack the whole place and just eat into a bunch of like stuffed like puppet dog, chicken, whatever animals.
It was the fakest looking stuffed animals.
There's even a scene later on where they're all like pushed up against a fence and you can see one of them on their hand still has one of the animal puppets. Like you couldn't even get rid of that for Lord.
So dumb.
But yeah, there's not much more to mention after that fact. They get to the hospital and like there's a cool scene where the kid, the blonde boy, trails off again to try to figure things out on his own. It's where he uses the gun for the one time before he loses it like a dummy.
He doesn't even use it properly.
But the zombie that he's kind of facing with down in the lower levels, this is the kill that was too much and got it the R rating.
Really?
Was when he's up against the wall and there's his sister and the what's it from Twin Peaks, Bobby, they come in and with a shotgun blast it in half, which was so cool. Loved that
favorite shot in the movie.
It was so cheesy, where like good cheesy, where like the legs are kind of stumbling and not sure where to go. The top torso is trying to figure out where to get it to go.
Climbing towards.
That was the kill that apparently was a bit much for them and got it to the R rating. Yeah,
I would assume a child getting a screwdriver in the mouth, which is how Blonde Boy tries to take care of the bully
because he keeps coming back. We keep seeing this bully, no matter how times he gets run over or they lose him. He always finds his way back, and it's probably honestly a love story at this point.
I think it is.
I think he probably bullies the kid because he's afraid of his feelings, and that's kind of his whole deal. That's really touching.
He's a zombie though,
and then he shoves a screwdriver in his mouth to kill him.
I don't want a screwdriver.
But there was some really like over the top kills that I really loved. I loved the shot where they shoot him in half. That's another great one.
Was good.
There's a bit where the pet scene, right, where they're at the pet store. One of the zombies is chasing after a dog, a real dog.
Oh yeah,
and it's running away from him. And then he's like, "I'm gonna hit it." He's like, "I don't even care. I know they're dead." So he runs into the zombie who gets blasted into a light up sign that electrocutes him for like 8 seconds, like a very long sequence,
long time,
which was so unnecessary. But I loved it so much. There it is. They understand the electricity. It comes back around. Yeah. And there's another shot where there's a zombie that scares another person, and she grabs it by the bottom jaw and pulls it off.
Oh yeah, I liked that.
Loved that.
Too.
There was some
tongue moving around.
There's
really
some
cool.
great prosthetic uses, some great kills that I really enjoyed.
So yeah, to wrap up the story, so they're at the hospital. They decide to go to a meat packing plant and get all of the beef brains.
Is a box that says beef brains,
which
that they just found.
Brains?
I don't know.
You don't call it cow beef.
The beef is the meat, right?
Yeah, you don't call it cow beef.
No.
Look at all those beef in that yard.
So yeah, they get all of this and then they load it into a van where they start throwing it out the back as they're driving to this big power plant, right?
Yeah.
And this is another point where I'm like, they're not helping me out as an audience member at all. I feel very lost. There was not like a discussion about this is the plan. We're going to do this. I'm like, okay. They've got beef brains. They're at the power plant. I can kind of suss out what they're trying to do here, but I don't know. We have not discussed. We have not had that sequence.
Literally.
Where they're like, let's do this. Electrocution is what gets them, right?
And there's so much we missed in this plot that I feel like we had to either have missed it or they just didn't write it.
Honestly, though, and I feel like they didn't. So that's where like the ending of this movie kind of takes place. Can I jump back real quick?
Yeah, absolutely.
Because there was one fantastic bit, another talking zombie moment, right?
Oh yeah.
Where I think they get like a radio signal because they stole the ambulance from the hospital, so that's what they're driving around in at first, and they get a broadcast from the hospital.
Oh, that's right.
And this zombie casually shuffles in with these jars in his hand. I'm like, what is going on here? And he starts setting them up. He's got little snacks. This zombie had like little pickled hearts in brain, and he's just like setting up for a cozy night in. He's fine. He doesn't
like
need
a
to
radio
chase
DJ.
Yeah.
He's just like,
he's
like
this older man who starts talking to them. He's like, oh yeah, this is the broadcast from the hospital. And the reason they know
back to the hospital.
The reason they know he's not not who they want to talk to is they ask him who's the current president of the United States, and he says some like really old president, and that's how they know.
And they had to make sure that the audience knew it was an old president because they made the kid say, "Who's that?" that?
Who's that? I don't know who that president is.
Did you not go to school, idiot?
It's just so funny. I loved that they put him in as they just had snacks. I didn't know zombies could get snacks.
They need some snacks.
I love that moment very much.
That was probably the highlight of the movie.
But we can generalize that their idea was like, okay, we're going to set up this big trap. We're going to electrocute all the zombies, which is like pretty wishful, hopeful thinking. Honestly, because like, how do they know they're going to get all of the zombies in this one burst? They set up a pretty neat looking trap for it, but it made me wonder. The last movie, as soon as the army was made aware that the zombies were a thing, they just bombed the town.
Bombed it. It was over.
And at one point, we finally figured out that the kid had called the army. We did notice that part, but they did evacuate the town. Yeah. Which they didn't tell us. And now we're figuring this out.
But now they're bringing it up.
Yeah, so I'm like, okay, so hold on. So the town, as far as they know, is evacuated, which is weird, because how did these characters not get swept up in that evacuation?
Exactly. And why didn't we see it?
Yeah, exactly. So the town was evacuated, which we were left, completely unaware of until this point. Why didn't they bomb it at this point?
Right.
Because at this point, again, they've stabbed them in the heads, they've cut the heads off, tried to dismember them. It's not working. None of these things are killing them. No, there are even shots of like the army men who were pretty useless throughout this movie, who were like filling them with bullets, and
exactly.
It's not working. So it's like, why don't they use the bomb again?
Why don't they use the bomb?
Was that too much of a cop-out? But it doesn't make sense, because the last time they were so easy to do it. So
it doesn't make any sense.
No, exactly, right?
So yeah, they electrocute him. A bunch of weird stuff happens. The old man has a bottle of whiskey that he's having a real hard time with.
He's sweating over this bottle.
He wants to drink it so bad.
He's trying to be good. He's the man on the inside who's going to flip the power back on once they have the trap set up. Unfortunately, when they set up the trap, they get set upon by the zombies, and they leave the walkie-talkie out, so they can't get word back to the doctor who's sitting here sweating over a bottle of alcohol.
And, the biggest sacrifice that happens in that movie is when the doctor takes that bottle of whiskey and smashes it over a zombie's head.
And he says, as he's coming up to this kid, yet another garbage one-liner. I should have written them down because there were so many of them and they were so stupid.
Yeah,
he comes up to this kid who is currently, the bully zombie kid is taking the blonde boy, and he's about to kill him, and he casually walks up behind him. He says, "Hey kid, I think your fly is down." Smash over his head. What on
I think your fly's down.
What on earth?
So dumb.
Why did they let this man on set, and why did they let him keep doing these things, right? But yeah, it was like a little bit before that we saw the kill with the screwdriver in the mouth, right? Where the zombie kid and the blonde boy were fighting.
We couldn't really call that a kill. It was like it was a stab.
But it was nasty, yeah.
It was gross, I hated it.
They're struggling, he reaches down beneath him and then just puts a screwdriver in his mouth and then smashes it deeper into him. Like, that was pretty nasty. There wasn't a lot of gore to it, but it was just gross to watch. Icky. Yeah, I just hated that.
But then finally, the kid dies, a transformer falls into the house.
Exactly. All of the zombies are getting electrocuted, which, like you mentioned, we know works now because of that very over-the-top electrocution scene.
Yeah, thank you,
and
writers.
Then, in the midst of this, again, a very long electrocution scene of all of the zombies, they have a zombie dressed like Michael Jackson
that's right.
from Thriller come center screen and he's being electrocuted as he is like half doing the dance moves.
Absolutely. It was shocking.
It was,
Michael Jackson was
to say the
least. And then the kid dies. The zombie kid dies.
And zombie bully.
The white blonde boy gets in one more one-liner. And he says, "That's why you're dead, asswipe. No brains with a big mouth."
Again, just... What? Who came into the production meetings? It's like, we've got this shitty one-liner quota we've got to meet. You need more of these. And garbage. I hated every second of them. It was at this point that I'm like getting so aggravated about this.
You were mad. I was scared.
I was so mad about this movie. And then, do you want to tell us what the final one-liner of this movie was?
Absolutely. So it pans around. All the zombies are dead. The
army is
here.
Finally in here. They finally came to help them.
Doing nothing. Really, they're just like walking around with guns. Anyway, so it pans down and you see the head.
The screwdriver head, who had the worst one-liner to start us out. With like, get that damn screwdriver out of my head.
So she looks up and sees one of the soldiers walking towards her with a flamethrower. She's
taunting him.
Yeah, he flamethrowers her. He stops flamethrowing her, zooms back in on her, and she's like, "Okay, no more brains. You win." For now.
For now.
And then cut to black.
That's our final. That's the finale there. And like, as soon as the credits started rolling, I screamed into a pillow for like 6 seconds.
At least. You were upset.
I was at my wit's end with the cheesy one-liners and oh gosh. It started out so well.
It did.
Where did you end up landing with this movie?
This movie was horrible.
I think this movie was a 50-50 split where it started out horrible.
Yeah.
Where I was like, I can understand, why I think people don't like this as much as the first one, but I think I really enjoyed it. It was a great horror movie. But then at the end there, it was just horrible for me.
There's no redeeming.
It really ended up being exactly where it should have been. Right?
I agree.
I understand why it landed where it was.
And I think any positive feelings people have about the movie are from the effects of the zombies.
The effects were great, and that really was what makes me want to call it Horrorble. I almost want to dub it that, but it's just the psychic damage I was dealt throughout the last 30 minutes of this movie.
I was feeling like I was going to need you to call you a therapist.
Honestly,
just to get you out
I
of
still
that
feel
funk.
like maybe I need one.
But yeah, I think the effects and also just that first half, even just like the first 20 minutes of the movie were really good.
Yeah,
and it's
honestly, I enjoyed it to start, and I did not end that way.
So Isaac, give us some trivia to finish us out.
So Tom Matthews, who played the character, I think of John. I can't remember his name in the second movie, but the first one he played Freddy, right? One of the actors that was in both of them. He disliked the sequel so much that he said the best part about making this film was the outstanding craft services. He said that was the best part of the entire experience.
That's hilarious.
Which is just so sad. In the final sequence of the movie, the blue electrocution lines that were hand drawn frame by frame.
Whoa!
They cost over $50,000 to put those in the movie.
Holy crap! Which back then was a lot of money.
Yeah, exactly. So like that was really, it was a long sequence of that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Apparently, the writer and director Ken Wiederhorn was not a fan of the horror genre at all, apparently. Really? Many cast and crew members, they expressed in interviews that they were displeased with his lack of enthusiasm towards the project at all.
What the heck?
Honestly, though. And apparently at first, another thing I found out was that it was not written to be a successor to Return of the Living Dead.
Oh.
It was only when it was picked up by whoever ended up producing the movie, they said they would only produce it if it was a successor to that movie to be in that universe, right? So that's the only way it would have gotten written or got produced, right?
That makes some of the incongruity make sense, though.
Exactly,
if they had to add some things.
Yeah, apparently this director really did not want to. I guess at this point he directed a couple horror movies. He was trying to get out of it, and after making this movie, only got offers for horror comedies.
That's hilarious.
Which is hilarious because it was not that great.
No, it had some laughs,
But yeah, so just more of the stuff we've already talked about. It would have been given the PG-13 rating had the hospital scene with the zombie shot in half been toned down, So yeah, it really, really showed that the director of it was not a fan of the horror genre because it started out great and then did not really end that way, which was just so sad.
It really is sad. Well, we watched those. Maybe we'll revisit. We'll visit 3, 4, and 5 later in the future.
I think I'm gonna need some rest, some rest and recuperation after watching that one.
You know what I say to that? Okay, no more brains. You win.
For now.
Goodbye.